apart, speaking moistly, speaking moistly. 2 meters apart, speaking moistly.
Welcome everyone to Speaking Moistly. With me as usual is Greg. How's it going, sir?
It's going fantastic. Drinking some coffee and talking to my friend Mark. It's a good time.
I hear you, man. It feels like last year we were talking about railroads and things being set on fire on railroad tracks for First Nations. The police were stymied. Nothing could be done. Everybody stood around looking kind of stupid and staring at people throwing like lit pallets at moving trains. And everybody said, like, this is dangerous for them. This is dangerous for the trains. We shouldn't be doing this. And nothing happened. And now we're seeing church fires. Church fires being incited by civil liberty lawyers and other people supporting them. It's a very, very strange thing. Like a weird descent in a year. What do you think's going on?
What do I think's going on? I think that you need to bring up the word hate crime, and you need to bring up the word terrorism, because these are a couple words that the establishment loves to throw around. The truck attack that happened in London, Ontario, it was a targeted hate crime or it was a terrorist attack. Mm-hmm. To this day, I feel like they're still a little bit short on details about that. I'm not saying it wasn't that, but they use those words. They use those specific words because it was a Muslim family that was killed. When it comes to church after church after church after church being burned down, it's just a big misunderstanding. I don't know. It's just a reaction to history. I guess we're supposed to believe it's because of the residential schools. And the left and progressives have been doing this for a while now, which is use history to justify all sorts of nonsense and insanity. Mm-hmm. I made a tweet talking about how it's like, in Justin Trudeau's Canada, you can, rationalize arson. You can rationalize like specific targeted terrorist attacks against the Catholic Church. Yeah. And that is so concerning because we see how we know the difference between right and wrong. Mm-hmm. Burning down a church, burning down a nice architectural structure, bad. But in this new progressive fantasy land run by Trudeau, morality is whatever I want it to be. And if history existed and residential schools existed, we can just burn down as many churches as you want. It's actually very similar to the BLM thing that was going on. Yeah. Of course there's going to be riots. Of course we're going to burn down small businesses and destroy entire communities and neighborhoods because racism existed in history, bro.
That's it.
That's why we're going to destroy all this stuff.
That's all the justification. So I was going to say, I think that the Black Lives Matter and what was happening in Portland in the run up to the 2020 election, what was happening in, across the US, we saw people saying that because your laws are systemically racist, we are going to, burn businesses down. I saw people in Portland going around collecting like protection money, like, oh, wouldn't it be a shame if Black Lives Matter were to burn your restaurant or whatever? That would be a shame. But if you give us some money, we'll make sure that doesn't happen. Like this is a shakedown, right? This is a traditional shakedown. But what's kind of a step further in Canada, and something that's very surprising, is someone like Hersha Walia inciting this violence herself directly by saying, burn it all down, in response to 2 more Catholic churches have been torched in Canada amid ongoing reports of more than 1,000, and it goes off. But the problem with this is all of a sudden it has become the go-to protest for something that you disagree with. What does this teach people? Like if the response to Catholic churches overseeing residential schools is to burn them down instead of meaningfully moving forward, what does that say about our society? I think that it is a very poor comment on the society that we've built that sits back and just allows this to continue. I think it's incredibly tone deaf for us to do that.
I think you're right. And I think what we're beginning to see is the failure of the Canadian identity that we've built or haven't built, because it's not just these churches burning down, right? Like, this is just kind of the next iteration of insanity. And I think the what you brought up originally, blocking the railroads, like half a dozen people blocking a major infrastructure vein, the rail system across the country. And what was the pushback? Who was the daddy figure to stand in and be like, stop doing that? There is a difference between right and wrong, and tough.
Well,
I know you're upset about something, but there needs to be some sort of
structure,
authority figure that actually makes sense.
Yeah. And it doesn't necessarily need to be a daddy figure. Like the having the prime minister weigh in and say arson's bad, but we understand your anger, didn't do anything to stop it, right?
Yep.
And so
I
think that part of the problem is our laws have been watered down to the point where arson, if you believe that it makes things right historically enough, is morally justifiable. But if you go out without a mask and or walk into a Costco without a mask, you deserve to be tackled and choked. How dare you, sir? Right? Like,
yeah,
that's what.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the warped sense of morality. It's completely insane.
And sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, the mask Karens the mask Karens don't see the correlation. Like, the mask Karens don't see how wild and crazy it is to sit back and be like, those churches deserved it, while also simultaneously believing that the person who walking into Costco without a mask or Canadian Tire without a mask deserved to be tackled to the ground and shown that they should have paid attention to the new COVID rules, because we're all in this together and all that, right?
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
And I think the alarming thing, like a takeaway from this, is, what does it really take to justify arson or to justify, this sort of destruction? And the answer is, 2 to 3 week campaign having to do with finding dead bodies and just pumping everybody with residential schools, talking about the Catholic Church, and then boom, we can start burning down churches and everyone will support it.
When did that start,
it was 215. It was the first 215 bodies they found in Kamloops.
How?
And the GPR reading.
Right. And what was the date? Hold on. What was the date of the vehicle attack that killed the Muslim family? Just off. Do you remember?
Geez, I don't remember.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So I don't know what's influencing this, because like there's all sorts of different triggers, and like, is it accurate to say that this whole church burning thing, this church arson across the country, was only ticked off because of the residential schools backlash? If so, why other religions than the Roman Catholic? Because it was the Roman Catholic Church that was overseeing this, not like Pentecostal. And this is a point made by one of the people I watched in this morning's show. A First Nations person had spoken to Walia Herschel. I think that's how you say it. I've probably got it wrong. But she had said that. And apparently Herschel said the tweet is she's being misquoted. Did you hear that?
Really?
She said she was misquoted. And like, the news reporter, to their credit, or Herschel Walia, the news reporter said after the so just to put context here for anybody who didn't watch this morning's show, this is CTV News, and it says, not in solidarity with us, Indigenous leaders call for church arsons to stop. So the Indigenous leaders are saying very clearly, this has nothing to do with us. This isn't retribution. This doesn't fix things. We don't want people to be burning down churches. And but part of the interview was talking about the Indigenous person speaking with, and she's a representative, and I can't remember her name, so that's why I'm referring to her as an Indigenous person. She spoke with Herschel Walia, and she said, Herschel claimed to be misquoted, and the Indigenous person said, well, we love and respect everybody. We don't want churches to be burned. Sending out a tweet that says, burn it all down, that's bad. And the reporter at the end, who was interviewing the Indigenous person who was relaying the story, Herschel Walia was not there, said she realizes, like, that's a tweet, right? How is she being misquoted? Like, we can read it. Like, it's not like there's no context there. There's context in everything, right? Like there's other tweets around it. It's crazy. So it's very funny the mental gymnastics the left will do to ignore even somebody who they're trying to defend. It's incredible. It's incredible.
Yeah, and really, I mean, it's morality is whatever they want, right? Like this, progressives are defined by this postmodern way of thinking, and part of postmodernism, it's this big basket of terrible ideas, and one of them is, post-structuralism and moral relativism. So it's like, well, is it really good or is it really bad? Like, is God really real? And they can justify all sorts of crap like this at the drop of a hat, and I mean, it's disgusting to watch, and obviously, like we've talked about the double standards before and how maddening they are, but like it's getting past the pale. We're getting past the pale here, and obviously the joke of haha, like these progressives are so loving and tolerant that targeting churches and burning them down is like progress.
Yeah.
Like the joke's not even really funny anymore. It's just really disgusting and disturbing.
Yeah.
And the silence of our politicians and leaders not speaking out about it, and more so people like tacitly kind of like approving of it or agreeing with it, is like the silence is deafening, is kind of a cliche to say, but it's like really, really kind of like, wow, like these people really don't care to stand up for anything.
Yeah.
At all.
I think that, yeah, and I think that again, I don't know that politicians denouncing it is not unhelpful. Like Jason Kenney's been on it, man. Every church burned, he's like, I'm here standing outside the burned wreckage of this church, and it's like, okay, I appreciate the work that you're doing to do that, but at the same time, you have to have your police enforce the laws. You have to have people who are aware that this is happening, and you know what I mean, like. You maybe step up the patrols, etc. Like the lip service is only goes so far. Do you know what else the left has? Immunity for speech, like inciting hate and violence on Twitter. The Hershaw Walia is able to say, keep those or burn those churches down. This person, Kevin, says, can someone please tell me why a lawyer inciting to burn down churches, A, is still on Twitter, B, still has a job as a lawyer? And this person is responding to Naomi Sayers saying, it's sad what's happening to Hershaw Walia, but let me be clear, I would help her burn it all down. And I would light her, and that would light our way forward. Does anybody really think like, oh yes, you see that distant, light? That's a burning church. Great, we got to go there. That's terrible. That is an awful, awful picture to draw.
Yeah.
And what an awful.
And we've talked about this before as well, but the infantilization of the Canadian public, it continues. They are grooming us to be politically illiterate.
Yes.
To not know how to solve any problems whatsoever. This is the same thing that happened with the statues. I got into an argument with Queen's University students over these statues. Oh yeah. And I had some energy that day. I felt like expending some energy. It's wading through some toxic sludge. So I'm like, let me just jump into this Facebook comment section with Queen's University students. And I just made the quick comment of like, I find it like really interesting that these people love to hold dead people accountable and then just like, tear down a statue. Like, yeah, we solved the problem. And like, what about the people who are alive who we could be holding accountable to actually make some for meaningful change?
Right.
And the response literally was, stop policing how Indigenous people deal with their trauma.
Yeah.
So essentially, like the takeaway is this: burning down the statues, toppling a statue, burning down the churches, rather, toppling down a statue. That is the first thing we need to do, because I said so, because trauma, because my feelings. And it's like, where do you even begin to tell people like you are politically illiterate if you think that's the case?
Yeah. Well, do you remember? Oh, sorry. Do you remember watching what's his face? I think he doesn't act anymore. Maybe he was attacked in a fake racist attack, I think. But he was an actor, and then they had a whole episode talking about punch a Nazi, and there's like a 2-minute, like he's walking down the street and he's like, you got to punch those, whatever. And what they do is they make it politically viable. Like they're teaching the audience what to do, and just as well, straight line. There's a direct connection between that kind of, you've got a punch a Nazi being spoken to a TV audience of, whatever. And this with powerful people, lawyers, saying burn down the churches. Like, they're saying there's some part of that that's okay by putting that idea out there, and there isn't, right? Like you were saying, in a rule of law society, arson is a crime. It doesn't matter if your motivation is really good and you really want to help people at base. If the way you're helping people is putting buildings on fire, you've gone about it wrong. Like you've screwed up, sir. Like, absolutely. But I watched video from Portland, probably Portland or one of the Antifa riots, of a person who looked like a very, stable person. I saw lawyers throw Molotov cocktails and then brag about it on video. And then I read about updates of those lawyers getting, one of them got fired and then got hired at another place for a higher amount. But these people go and do very illegal things, and they'll talk into a camera saying, this arson isn't really arson because it's against the U.S. Post Office, and the United States is guilty of crimes, of war crimes, and so this arson is justified arson. And it's, people will take that and say, oh, I understand. I can make those mental connections, and that's, is that radicalization? I don't know, but I don't believe that. I don't believe that anything justifies arson. And the problem in Canada is far too many judges and other people in power have been put into place who believe that maybe arson is justified and maybe it's okay. So do we have radicalized judges in the country? Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, to look at this church burning situation and not connect it with kind of a larger picture, I think it's difficult not to do that, because my own political journey has actually turned into a spiritual and even a learning about Christianity one, because when it comes to the common denominator between a lot of Western societies and things that I think are valuable and define the Western society that I grew up in, there's a lot of churches around. There's a lot of influence of Christian morality everywhere. And if you haven't noticed, nowadays sin is everywhere. Sinning here, sinning there, indulging in this, indulging in that. Obviously, we could bring up the extreme transgender ideology that's being taught to kids. There's at the end of the day, there's good and evil. Okay.
So here, I want a quick story. So I used to, I like theories. My mind is just, it goes all the time. So I came across a video years ago of a woman, and she was holding the Monster can. The Monster can? Right, it's got the three. Okay, yeah, right.
Yeah.
She was.
I've heard this one. Yeah.
She believed this, man. She was all over this, and I was like, okay, I'll listen to your spiel. So I listened to the whole spiel, and I was like, that's interesting. I wonder if there's any truth to the language that she's using to justify her claims. I'm sure that there is.
Basically, for those watching, she had a theory that the symbol of the monster is represents 666 or something like this.
Yeah. So It's not an M. They don't connect. It's three symbols, and the three symbols are for, I think it's Baal, but I'm not entirely sure exactly. And I thought, man, that's weird. And so now, whenever I walk through that section in the grocery store, I get unnerved. 1, 2. If you look on Netflix, if you don't believe that there's a religious aspect to this, to whatever's going on, and an honest spiritual nature to things that are being driven one way or the other, just go on Netflix and count how many devil 666 demons, angels and demons, count how many devils and how many angels. Just do it for your own little, just even scroll through and keep a count on your hand for how many devils, right? How many devils, how many 666, how many shows that are based on Satan and those kind of stuff. It is incredible how many, cannibalism, all sorts of crazy stuff on Netflix. I've talked about this on my other show before.
Sure. But it's 13 Reasons Why You Should Kill Yourself.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Is a show.
Yes.
That's yeah.
Yeah, aimed at kids. This isn't anyway. And even
Cuties.
Cutie's terrible. That's just pedophilia. But no, there was a show where the devil was like a funny character, and he like the mom and the dad sell their son to the devil to do whatever, and then the devil collects at 18, and they get into hijinks. Like, and the devil's kind of seen as this funny guy, right? There's so many. There's so many. Look at movies as well. There's so many. So if you don't believe that they're, and I don't know that that's a reflection of humanity putting God and the devil into entertainment.
Art stories and entertainment.
Yeah, I think that I think there's something else to it, because the gods that we worship at the box office are Thor and Captain America and Spider-Man and Iron Man. Because, and think about it, right? It's God separated out, but we've made them into men who are fallible. Tony Stark is an alcoholic billionaire, right? So, but he's a fallible God, and it's not a singular God, right? It's been smashed into a whole bunch of others. Again, we're getting off topic, but there's something to that, right? If it was an equal, we're putting God and the devil into our stories, we'd have something speaking more to God within the entertainment sphere, but we don't. Anything that's speaking to a higher power is speaking to something much more fictional than whatever God is, right? And so, I mean, not to go completely, wildly off the rails, but just to speak to it.
And I think what we're dealing with today is evolutionary psychologists have said that our brains and our psychology is predisposed towards spirituality and being spiritual in some capacity. And in our world right now, in Canada, the atheism is obviously very popular. Nihilism is obviously very popular. And, being religious is cringe, bro. Like, that's kind of like the popular kind of message we get all around us. So there's a vacuum of spirituality. And what has filled that spirituality is, Justin Trudeau morality, which is the worst possible thing. The worst possible thing you could ever be is racist or transphobic or homophobic. And the way for you to repent your sins is to vote for me. Yeah. Okay.
Lucky us. We've got him. Look at that hand. Yeah. What if you knew not the key to a happy life, but the meaning of life? What if you knew that and nobody would listen, right? What if you knew that the meaning of life was working as hard as you could work to provide what you could for a family that depended on you and you depended on them just as much? A partnership, not
you know what I would respond to that?
Right. What?
Burn it down. Burn that person at the stake. They don't have the answers. They're a liar. They don't even have
misinformation.
This person doesn't even have an Amazon Prime account. Get them.
Oh, no. What's your Facebook account? Forget about it. All right. Last story for today. Chris Sky. Do you want to talk about Chris Sky? I did not know that he has the Matrix. I didn't know he had the Matrix as his... And he's Neo.
He's the one.
He's
the one.
He's the one. Which I thought was fantastic. Like, that's great. That's good for him. Here is... He's calling out Maxime Bernier. So basically... Do you want to give the history of this? I haven't talked about this on my show at all because I just can't be bothered.
I don't want to give it too much breath or oxygen either. But essentially, on July 1st, there was a big demonstration outside the Supreme Court. The Liberty Coalition and everybody who was a part of that spoke. So that's what Derek Sloan, Randy Hillier, Max Bernier, and some others. Friesen was there. Laura Lynn was there as well. And I'm pretty sure that Chris Sky was like scheduled to speak, I believe, and I could be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure he was scheduled to speak.
He wasn't scheduled to speak. No, he wasn't. No, I saw some text from Friesen. He wasn't scheduled to speak. He wasn't.
Okay,
he had a Parliament Hill thing
my mistake. My mistake. He showed up and basically made a scene and demanded to speak, and then I think they like made accommodations for him to speak.
They tried to, yeah.
And then I haven't really been following it because it just like since then because it just kind of seems like really petty, unimportant, ego-driven nonsense where I really don't see what Chris is trying to do here. Like, bro, like you sold your book on Parliament Hill, and like what's your end game here? Like you, I don't know. I really don't understand it. I don't get it.
Yeah. Well,
and this conversation before, as we go into it, is kind of, if you're anyone in Canada who is opposing these lockdowns and these, the Trudeau regime, we're a mess right now. We're all over the map. There's the PPC party. There's people who think there's no political solution. There's Chris Sky selling a book, running around. There's rumors of Derek Sloan starting his own party. There's the new Blue Party in Ontario, and it's like it's just it's a mess, to be quite
Yeah.
frank.
Well,
And now we're kind of having these ego wars, and it's like it is what it is. I just kind of sit back and watch it, and I'm like, this is pretty unproductive for sure.
yeah, yeah. So basically, Chris Sky had something happening on Parliament Hill on Canada First, July 1st, and then I guess it didn't pan out. So he came over and tried to hijack the speaking list. He wanted to speak, and then people got angry, and now Chris Sky is attacking the PPC. Like it's morphed from him being mad about not speaking to him calling out Max Bernier. There was like a Twitter
Right.
poll that had Chris Sky
Right.
beat everybody for prime minister. I thought that was pretty
Right.
funny. And he's
So
got 48,000 followers. I don't understand how that happens.
yeah, and then there's also a weird thing that happened. Initially, there was like this Republican Party of Canada, like this Rob Carbone guy or something, who was like closely affiliated with Chris Guy, I thought. And then, but like we haven't heard
Oh,
from
there
that
was
guy.
a fall. Yeah, there was
So,
some kind of laptop thing.
yeah.
I don't know about that.
Right. So,
There's so
but
much drama, but that's like so. I'm a no drama llama, right? Like I don't like I don't like drama. Let's just chill.
no,
Let's
no
just talk about
drama. We don't want no drama.
That's right.
Yeah.
So when I see kind of this kind of stuff happening, and every other day there's like a drama laden like post, and oh my goodness, everybody, you won't believe what's happening next. Now, like there's some crazy stuff. I saw Chris Sky surrounded by cops, and like he was telling them back off, and like I've seen some crazy stuff. So I don't think he's like totally full of nonsense. But I don't know what this is. Like I don't know why. Like there's too many people subverting whatever cohesive message the right wing is trying to get out. It's being subverted at every single turn. Doesn't matter if the person seems like they're a good guy or a bad guy. How could you possibly tell, right? Like somebody could have a bad day, somebody could have a bad weekend, right? Okay, fine, forgivable. But at the same time, there's so many pieces of the puzzle and it's like a moving machine that you can't help but think, did you do this on purpose? Like, is there another conclusion? Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't think so.
and to think of it from like a high level perspective, what is happening to our world? Like we're going through this crazy transformation where our rights are being taken away at such a rapid pace, and there is really a big incentive to ensure that another Trumpian-like movement does not happen in any country around the world. We don't want that. We don't want somebody who is a kind of right-wing populist who stands against progressivism, stands against medical tyranny. So I would imagine there's a lot of efforts being made to make sure they never get off the ground.
Yeah.
To make sure that they continue to be a what's the word, floundering and kind of fumbling around. Probably Alberta is a great example because there was like 56 different separatist parties that propped up. I'm obviously exaggerating, and I'm not trying to denounce any of those movements that have come up. But the point is, divide and conquer, right? When we're divided and we're all in these different kind of jumping between these different groups or different teams, or like bickering amongst each other over nonsense, I really think part of the core issue too, is especially with conservatives, we're individualists. Like, there's kind of like this libertarian flavor to a lot of us who are like, well, I have my right and I want to have my individual thing. And like, we're kind of obsessed with the truth as well. So we're like, well, technically this or technically that, or this policy or that policy. Collectivism is a good thing. Okay. We're not like in and of itself good, but we need more collectivism of some kind, some sort of organization, some sort of like driving force to push forward and to all get behind, as opposed to trying doing this strange kind of mob all over the map sort of thing. We're all arguing with each other and getting absolutely nowhere. That's not working.
Well, it's not, and I think you're right that there's some kind of movement to disrupt any coalescing of people who are like-minded. And the way to fight that is to, you're right, like consolidate people, but under what banner and once you start to consolidate, I've talked about this before. I get frustrated, and we're gonna have to wrap it up soon because I gotta go. But we've talked about it before, where as soon as you get organized to the point where you're seen as a threat, then they smash
You get slandered.
Yeah,
you get slandered. You get smeared.
You get your YouTube channel canceled. You get your group suspended on Facebook. You get your account suspended on Twitter for 10 days or 7 days or 30 days, depending on whatever.
Yep.
So as soon as you hit a break point, as soon as you hit, you break through, 10,000 followers or something like that, done, right? They'll just stop you. And so, like, how do you get around that? How do you get around that? I don't know. It's a good question. Actually, Getter is a new platform that looks to be kind of cool. So,
but I think the main thing that is lacking in a lot of the movements, or in general, is people want a quick answer. They want a quick solution, and I think actually what Chris Sky is doing right now is a great example of what not to do, which is kind of like this dopamine hit of like, I want the attention now, and like, I'm going to put this spotlight on me right now. What is the long-term plan here? Okay. Like, there needs to be, although time is of the essence, there does need to be a degree of patience. There needs to be a degree of strategy.
Well, I can't.
And guess what? The work is going to be work, and it's going to be boring, and it's going to be the kind of like being consistent.
But hold on,
the key.
Even the goal setting is just insane. Like, if you have a group of people who are politicians who are saying our goal is to get a seat, they're setting their sights on the wrong thing. Yes, that should be a goal, but it shouldn't be the main driving goal. It should be, we need to tell 10,000 people about us. Now we need to tell 25,000 people about us. And as soon as you hit these goals, then you can start seeing, okay, now we can use this audience to do blah, right? And we have to get a way for somebody else not to take away those audience numbers, and then you have to have a way to actually utilize the audience and something to form them to, something to sell them that they want, that they'll work for, right? And if you're a politician, then you should be selling policies. But I could go on for hours, but we don't have hours.
Tune in next week for the Canadian War Room with Mark and Greg. We'll be talking more about political strategy and how we're going to save the country.
Holy cow! Do you want to do that on Wednesdays? Seriously, I've been
a War Room podcast.
Yeah, War Room style. We'll have call-in people. We can even have guests if you want, or
potentially. Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, but I want to have call-in people, and I think we can do it on Podbean. So I think that's my plan. I think you and me are going to trial it.
Okay. I mean, sure.
This is my third attempt. I've been telling you, now I'm taking longer than I should, but I've been telling you that I've been trying to figure out this internet radio thing, right? So I tried hosting it on my own platform. It was like hosting it on my own server. It was okay, worked okay. It did a lot of the things I wanted it to do, but it wasn't clean and it wasn't as nice as I wanted it to be.
Right.
And then I tried a second one that you could buy, and I didn't like it. But I paid for it, and basically it had the same problems as the self-hosted one, and I was like, this is terrible. So Podbean has something that is specifically made for listening call-in shows, and then we can put it out on Rumble Live, and then we could probably even I'll probably make a YouTube channel for it, verify it, and then we can send it out on YouTube Live, but take calls through Podbean. That's my plan. So anyway, it's a loose plan. You and I have to workshop it before we actually do it, but it'll be every week at the same time. So that's my idea. Anyway, we'll figure it out. Okay, last words, and where can they find you?
I wanted to bring up Bill C-36 in relation to churches, because Bill C-36 is hate speech is now vilifying and detesting things, and it's like we have burning churches. So for some reason I feel like that won't be included into Bill C-36. So just another reason why Bill C-36 is authoritarianism. Anyway, you can find me. I just wanted to get that out there because it's something that we need to fight this summer and get ahead of, because this bill is like the worst. And that's not even an exaggeration. So follow me on Twitter and TikTok, GDub, and follow me, Greg Wycliffe, on my YouTube. Thank you for having me, Mark.
It's always lovely, sir. It's always lovely. And me, you can find at CanadaPoly.com. And I have Canada Poly Shorts on YouTube and Speaking Moistly on YouTube. So there are some properties still on YouTube, but my main channel has been nuked. I even appealed it, and they said no. And it was like 10 minutes later. I was like, I'd like to appeal this. And I wrote, they give you 5,000 words, so I wrote enough. And 10 minutes later, they're like, no. Made me laugh. Anyway, regardless, I'm still on YouTube if you want to check that out. But if you want to check out the back catalog, you've got to go to Library, Odyssey, or Rumble, or other places than YouTube, etc. And, well, that's it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Here's the Prime Minister to play us out. Is it going to work? Take it for
Speaking moistly. Keep 2 meters apart. Speaking moistly. Speaking moistly. Keep 2 meters apart. Speaking moistly.
Oh, what a terrible image.